Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump wraps up the NATO summit with new comments on defense spending. Turkey and Iran will have the latest from the summit. President Trump is calling on Congress to pass another reconciliation bill, why he wants to pair defense funding with election legislation. The U.S., Japan, and South Korea are deepening their partnership on nuclear energy, how a new agreement aims to expand next-generation reactors. Apple is making a major investment in U.S. chip production, the new multi-billion-dollar deal, and what it means for American manufacturing. Mysterious metal spheres wash up on an Australian beach, plus an enormous paper airplane takes flight to set a world record. The Southern Poverty Law Center is
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. President Trump is touting what he calls a successful NATO summit, saying allies are stepping up defense spending while boosting demand for American-made military equipment. Joining us now live from the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, good afternoon. What stood out most from the president's remarks today?
Good afternoon to you as well, Don. So President Trump is actually now on his way back already to Washington. Now he's just left Ankara after wrapping up a press conference here with us at the NATO summit. And now a few things that really stood out from his presser wrapping up his whole trip. One is that despite his criticism of NATO allies for not spending enough and not helping the U.S. enough during the whole Iran conflict, he did leave an overall positive tone about the whole summit, saying that it's a very successful meeting, adding that there was tremendous unity inside the room with the leaders. He's also urging all NATO members to now speed up to really make an action to fulfill their vow of stepping up their spending on defense, including by meeting the 5% GDP target over the next decade. He also knows that a lot of that money will go to American military equipment. Now, speaking of American military equipment, he's also, of course, talking about his recent willingness that he signaled to sell Turkey F-35 fighter jets. Now he calls Turkey a very loyal ally, adding that Turkey has been great to the U.S. Let's take a look.
I think it's going to go very quickly. They hit a couple of ships. A very strong relationship with Turkey. You know, it's a very big country. It's a very powerful militarily. It's the second most powerful country in NATO. So whether or not we do that, I haven't totally made up my mind. But my inclination is to say, look, he's done everything. He's helped us in so many different ways.
Now, this whole NATO summit also comes amid fresh tensions between the U.S. and Iran, as the U.S. has now struck over 80 targets in Iran, according to Central Command, in retaliation over Iran's strikes against ships in the Strait of Hormuz, a violation of the ceasefire, according to the Trump administration. Now, President Trump today issuing harsh words toward the regime and Iran, saying that they're liars and cheaters. But he also noted during the press conference that he believes the conflict with Iran will be over soon. Let's take a look.
I think it's going to go very quickly. They hit a couple of ships, and so we hit them much harder. We may even, somebody asked before, do you think you'll hit them tonight? I said, we might. Yeah, we might. Anything that happens is going to be over very quickly. And we'll only make it safer, including for oil.
Notably, President Trump saying that tonight the U.S. could hit Iran hard again. Earlier today, the president says that he believes the ceasefire with Iran is now over amid the latest escalations. Specifically, he's also calling out Iran for violating the terms in the ceasefire, saying that the leaders there are not trustworthy, unlike leaders of any other rational, sane countries. Those living under democracies who might not have realized how close
this country, with this thing that's going around, is in more danger than it was during World War I, World War II. If you talk about September 11th, if you talk about Pearl Harbor, that was big danger. I think the concept of us going communist, because one thing that happens when you go communist, you never come back, never comes back. You die in squalor. You die a horrible death. You die in squalor, and it gets very evil and very nasty.
And this coming amid some self-proclaimed democratic socialists have defeated traditional or establishment Democrats endorsed by the establishment of the Democratic Party in primaries in places in New York and Colorado. President Trump has warned that this upcoming midterms will be especially crucial for the direction of the U.S. Back to you.
Okay, Iris, thank you. Oil prices are hitting a two-week high as President Trump threatens additional strikes against Iran. The president says U.S. forces may seize Iran's Karg Island. Brent crude futures were up around 5.8% to around $78.50 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate jumped 5% to around $74 a barrel. Both benchmarks rose after the U.S. revoked a general license authorizing the sale of Iranian crude. Iran exports 90% of its crude oil through Karg Island, which sits 16 miles from the Iranian coast. The island lies in the northern end of the Gulf, about 300 miles northwest of the Strait of Hormuz. Here's the president on future attacks against Iran.
And so we hit them very hard last night. Very, very hard. Probably hit them hard again tonight. I'll give them a little warning. We're going to hit them hard tonight. We attacked Karg Island last night. We knocked out a piece. I said, don't touch the oil, because maybe we'll take over Karg Island. We may take over Karg Island. There's not a thing they can do about it.
President Trump says as far as he's concerned, the memorandum of understanding with Iran is over. And joining us now to discuss more is Rod Martin, geopolitical analyst and CEO of Martin Capital. Thank you for joining us today. Trump says he thinks it's a waste of time to be talking with Iranian leaders. What's your reaction at this moment after everything that's happened?
Well, that just tells us that he has used the time he bought with the ceasefire to do whatever it is he's setting up, which may include training key people inside Iran, arming them, any number of things. This president has negotiated some of the biggest deals in the history of the world. He always knew that these people could not really be dealt with. And it's not just that, it's that he has managed through this process to get them to fight each other. We have seen assassinations and counter-assassinations between the Mullah faction, the IRGC faction. We have seen all kinds of splits again and again. A couple weekends ago, the Assembly of Experts, which is the mullahs who elect the new Ayatollah, voted 3-1 against a key initiative of the IRGC, and then had to say, oops, our bad, we didn't mean that. He has them pitted against each other. They were never going to make a deal. But on the other hand, this is Donald Trump, so he always leaves himself multiple ways to win. One of those, of course, is, at least in theory, negotiation. But the Iranians have proven that they cannot really be negotiated with. They have proven it to the Gulf Arab states that obviously have been a little bit slow on the uptake about that, because the Iranians keep attacking them when they aren't attacking Iran. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a much more solid coalition against Iran than ever before, and we're going to get to the end of this.
Okay, so what is Iran's guiding ideology here? Because it seems like from what you're describing, they're making more enemies than friends.
They absolutely are, and it's just shocking to watch. I mean, if you're Iran, why on earth do you want to hit Kuwait or Bahrain or Qatar or the UAE or Saudi Arabia? Why do you want to do that? Don't you want to look like the reasonable player that is showing Muslim solidarity against the great Satan in North America? But no, that hasn't been their take from the first. From the first, they have taken out their wrath more on the Gulf Arab states, really, than anybody else, even Israel. And it's just an amazing thing to watch. Now, some of that is the factionalization. We talked about this quite a bit back in March about their much vaunted mosaic defense, which decentralizes command into 31 separate regions across the country. Well, that was always a recipe for factionalization. And some of these guys just go and do things without actually having direction from the center. But the center is fractured too. And we've been seeing that since the first Islamabad talks. These guys hate each other. The Ayatollah, if he is even alive, hasn't been seen in public, was kept away from his father's funeral. They will not let him come out in public. That tells you everything you need to know. The fight is over internal control. Some of these people are, in answer to your question, motivated heavily by 12er Shia Islam, a subset of a subset of Islam with a particularly militant bent. Some of these people are just motivated by power or by staying alive. And those cross currents are playing out in Tehran as we speak. And now they've poked the bear one time too many.
Okay, so if you're saying some of these people are motivated by power or staying alive, and you're saying that there's fractures at the center. Now, when you hear the statement, and I saw this today, when Iranian officials say that the U.S. must recognize the new Iranian order in the Strait of Hormuz, how would you interpret that? Is it an empty statement giving everything that you just described just now?
That is possibly the emptiest statement in human history. Iran does not have a navy. They have some speedboats that can go harass shipping. They have some missiles left that we're probably about to finish off. They have spent the last 60 days moving things around the country that perhaps we had not found in March and April, and now we know exactly where they put them. So we're just going to blow all those up too. Also, the U.S. Navy hasn't moved. We're in the same spot we were. We can clamp down with the blockade instantly, which I assume is probably what the president is about to do. He's talking about seizing Karg Island. Well, that's 90% of Iran's exports, even if we don't obstruct them. And by the way, 90% of Iran's exports go to China. So the Chinese aren't thrilled about what's happening here. This is going to significantly increase prices there and put pressure on their domestic situation as it was back during the hostilities in March. None of this is good for Iran, but there is a fanaticism among the Mullah faction in particular about their religious position. There is a fanaticism among the IRGC about partly theology, but mostly power. And they're just not dislodgeable. They're going to continue to fight until we kill them. And my guess is Donald Trump is ready for that.
Okay, so if we fight until they're defeated, does that mean you're thinking that military action will likely resume? Because as we've seen, Iran doesn't really behave like or have the rational thinking of a normal country. Does that essentially mean war or military action is the only way, the only path forward?
Look, Donald Trump can pull a rabbit out of a hat sometimes, so maybe you get to some kind of settlement. But yes, I think the answer is military. I don't think there's any way around it. And dealing with Iran is a centerpiece, not the only centerpiece, but a centerpiece of the Trump foreign policy, not because of Iran itself, but because Iran has been, for much of the last several decades, the centerpiece of all conflict in the Middle East. If you're talking about the Houthis, if you're talking about Hamas, if you're talking about Hezbollah, if you're talking about Syria, if you're talking about the Shia militias in Iraq, anywhere you look where there is a conflict, it is armed, directed, and funded from Tehran. And we are rolling all that up on the ground. Even in Iraq, the new Iraqi government is arresting key Shia militia leaders and disarming those militias, which is really the final nail in the coffin of the external Iranian empire, such as it has been. But you still have to deal with the head of the snake. And there's just no getting around the fact if they're given time, they will reconstitute. They will start funding all those conflicts again. They'll create some new ones we haven't heard of. But your assessment, Don, is exactly right on another point. This is why you can't ever let them have a nuclear weapon, because they don't deal with the world like rational countries. If the Russians have nuclear weapons, you have a pretty good idea of exactly what would deter their use. If the Chinese have nuclear weapons, you have a very good understanding of what they will and will not do with them, and you can act against it. With the Iranians, they want to burn the world down. And it doesn't matter how irrational it seems to us. It makes sense from their theological and political point of view, and that's the only point of view they're interested in. So the president was right to start this, and the president's going to be right to finish it, and he's probably going to have to finish it militarily. I really don't see another good option.
I mean, it seems like Iran is not looking for anything practical, because when it agreed to this memorandum of understanding, it was getting so many benefits from the U.S. We removed the blockade of Iranian ports. That was one, and we removed sanctions. So Iran was standing to benefit from this, and now these actions that it's taking, it just makes you wonder if it wants anything practical. But let me just ask you one last question here, Rod. President Trump suggested potentially in the future, maybe the U.S. might take over Karg Island. What do you think about this strategy?
I think there's a decent chance that happens now. The president was very clear that he intends for this to take very little time. Now, what is very little time? I don't know. Depending on your point of view, World War II was 3 years or 6. Depending on your point of view, the Vietnam War was 8 years or 30 years. So in terms of warfare, a very short time might be 6 months. I don't know what he means. Maybe he means 6 days. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to end it quickly, cutting off the Iranian regime's ability to earn foreign cash is essential. It was essential to our victory in the Cold War. It's essential to what's happening to Russia right now as the Ukrainians are increasingly hitting, for example, the other day, the largest oil refinery in Omsk, a city even Hitler wasn't able to strike. We're drying up their hard currency. We're making it very, very difficult for them to continue prosecuting their war. And of course, that's essential here. The Iranians have a unique vulnerability in their putting all their eggs in one basket at Karg Island. Honestly, that's an incredibly easy operation for us if we just want to deploy a Marine force or however they want to go about it. And there's not a thing in the world the Iranians can do about it. Moreover, if they were to attack Karg Island in the pursuit of getting it back, they destroy the infrastructure that they have to rebuild. So yes, I think that's probably high on the menu. I don't know if the president will actually do it, but if I were in his position, I would certainly give it serious consideration.
Okay, great points you made today, Rod. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
President Trump is pressing Congress to move quickly on a new legislative package. What's he including in it and the challenges ahead? More after this.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Introducing the Quest-Wise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens your tired eyes. Placing the eye patches around your eyes helps to reduce dryness and massages acupuncture points. They can be worn while reading, studying, using electronics, and provide hours of long-lasting relief.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
President Trump's nominee to lead U.S. intelligence agencies is set to face a Senate confirmation hearing next week. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence says the nomination hearing for Jay Clayton is scheduled for July 15th. The Director of National Intelligence oversees the nation's 18 intelligence agencies. In May, former Director Tulsi Gabbard said she was leaving the administration to spend time with her husband following his cancer diagnosis. President Trump named Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte to serve as the acting director. Democrats opposed the appointment, saying Pulte lacked experience for the position. The president then nominated Clayton, a former Securities and Exchange Commission chairman and current U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. President Trump delayed Clayton's hearing in June while pushing Congress to pass the Save America Act. President Trump is pressing Congress to pass Reconciliation 3.0. That's a third-party line bill. This one will be aimed at extra funding for the Department of War, and the president is also pushing to add the Save America Act. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
The president, while attending the NATO summit, prioritizing supplemental defense funding. He's calling on Congress to make it a #1 priority to ensure that the $350 billion Pentagon funding, paired with the Save America Act, is passed. In a Tuesday post on Truth Social, the president writes, "The Save America Act, which everyone is asking for, paired with the full funding of our great Department of War, can be passed very quickly, ensuring that the United States of America stays free for generations to come." Democrats have so far rejected the Save America Act, arguing the voting requirements would suppress voters. Republicans say it would make it harder to cheat.
All voters must show voter ID. All voters must... All voters must provide a little thing called proof of citizenship.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune says the Senate doesn't have the votes to pass the bill, leaving Republicans to use a party line process known as budget reconciliation.
It is very clear there will be no Democrat votes.
Some Republicans say there could be a downside to using the special budget process for the election integrity bill.
How can you tweak the Save America Act for it to fit? When you start doing that, you start, I think you start diluting what the Save America Act can do or should be doing.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says he's working on a package that will unify Republicans.
We're planning to do is send over a bill that will be irresistible for any Republican. Really incredible piece of legislation that will get the job done.
Trump's call comes after a federal judge blocked the administration from enforcing part of an executive order he signed last year that would require proof of citizenship to vote in elections. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The Southern Poverty Law Center has pleaded not guilty once again to federal criminal charges. The group entering another not guilty plea after additional details were added to the charges first announced in April. Prosecutors accused the organization of misleading donors by failing to disclose that donated money was used to pay informants inside extremist groups. The superseding indictment also alleges some of the money was used to buy Ku Klux Klan robes and materials for cross-burning ceremonies. The SPLC denies any wrongdoing. In May, it said the charges are provably wrong and based on inaccurate facts and a misapplication of law. The group says its informant program provided critical intelligence that helped law enforcement prevent threats and dismantle extremist organizations. An Australian woman is charged with illegally voting in U.S. elections. Authorities say Denise Natalie Miore illegally voted in 2 federal elections after falsely claiming to be an American citizen. Homeland Security arrested Miore in New Orleans last week. If convicted, she faces up to 5 years in prison, financial penalties, and possible deportation. Australia's government says it is providing consular assistance to her. The Department of Homeland Security says only Americans should be electing U.S. leaders and will find and arrest any foreigners voting in U.S. elections. The man who pleaded guilty for posing as one of the kidnappers behind Nancy Guthrie's abduction has been ordered into inpatient substance abuse treatment. A federal judge issued the order after the Los Angeles area resident admitted to sending fake ransom messages to Guthrie's family. Derek Kalea pleaded guilty on July 2nd to 2 counts of harassment by telecommunications device. In entering his guilty plea, Kalea admitted that he called and sent text messages to Guthrie's family. The charges carry a maximum sentence of 2 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Sentencing is scheduled for September 10th, and FBI and Pima County Sheriff have said they believe Nancy Guthrie was abducted in the early hours of February 1st. Savannah Guthrie made an appeal on the Today Show last month, urging people with any information to come forward. New York City remains cautious as workers continue on a high-rise building that bucked. Four nearby buildings remain under evacuation orders today.
In addition to narrowing the number of buildings on a vacate order, we've also narrowed the frozen zone. That is going to continue to narrow as we get more and more information from the building. As the DOB commissioner said, the building is stable, and yet we are going to continue to prioritize the safety of all in that immediate area. That's why we continue to have vacate orders for those 4 buildings, that 1 ground floor restaurant.
Crews worked through the night to shore up the former Pfizer headquarters, which is being converted into apartments. They installed temporary shoring and beams on floors 18 through 23 of the building and will add additional supports throughout the day. Crews will make their way to the roof and down to the 9th floor. Midtown streets around the construction site remain closed. The mayor says there has been no additional movement in the building since Tuesday morning. Once emergency repairs are complete, the city will conduct a rigorous assessment. This will ensure the plans and the site are fully compliant with all codes before any non-emergency work proceeds. Apple has announced a $30 billion deal to design chips made in the U.S. by Broadcom. That company makes wireless connectivity chips for the gadgets we use to connect to Wi-Fi cell networks and Bluetooth. The Apple-Broadcom agreement will lead to the production of 15 million chips in the U.S. The deal also allows Broadcom to invest $1.5 billion to expand and modernize its manufacturing facilities in Fort Collins, Colorado. The announcement is the latest in Apple's continued effort to diversify the source of its components and to help support domestic chip production. That's also been a goal for President Trump. Apple CEO Tim Cook, in a statement, notes a long history between the two companies. He says this deal is another speed up Apple's commitment to American manufacturing and innovation. Apple has lost its legal challenge against European Union rules designating as a gatekeeper. The EU law requires some of the world's largest technology companies to open their platforms to greater competition. The EU's General Court ruled that the bloc was correct to classify Apple as a gatekeeper in relation to its App Store and iOS. Under the EU's Digital Markets Act, companies designated as gatekeepers must follow rules to open up digital markets, giving rivals a chance to compete. The court said the EU correctly treated Apple's app stores across different devices as a single platform service. The court added that Apple can appeal the ruling to the EU's Court of Justice. Is the American dream under pressure? We'll explore the debate over democratic socialism and its impact on families after this break. Stay tuned.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is me? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, backpack kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
And joining us now to discuss the rise of democratic socialists is Alvin Liu. President of courage is a habit. So Alvin, good afternoon. Good to see you. So I understand you've said that DSA victories aren't a true working class movement, but are bankrolled by wealthy elites. Why do you say that, and why is this an important point?
Don, it's always lovely to see you. So the Democratic Socialist is just a fancy term for very jealous people who don't want to do anything and want to take from the people that do. And normally, if that was just lazy people, we all know lazy people, that's fine. But the problem is that this is the attitude and the culture that is pervasive in government K through 12 and, of course, in colleges. And so the idea is that these children grow up wanting to take from people who sacrifice, who toil, who work very, very hard, and who has delayed gratification, who wants to leave something better for their children, which is the American dream. And this is just a thing that every human being wants to do. You want your children to have a leg up over you. And these democratic socialists hate generational wealth. And I'm not just talking about billionaires. I'm not just talking about millionaires. I'm talking about if you're just an average family that wants to leave a property or two for your children so that they can build for their children. They want to take that from you because that's the only way you can destroy America is to make everybody dependent on government. And that's exactly what these democratic socialists do. And this is what they're teaching your kids in school through culturally responsive teaching and critical race theory.
I mean, is that what they ultimately want? What socialism and communism always leads to? Because why do these candidates or this idea of socialism and communism take such issue with people that are well off or those that are wealthy? Why?
Well, you hear it in their disdain. They're jealous, they're envious, they're miserable. Every time someone does well, they'll say it's because your parents had money or your parents started you off, as if that's supposed to be something to be ashamed about. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans do feel ashamed about that. They feel ashamed that their parents did something for them. And so then they start to be ashamed and don't want to say too loud that their parents thought about them. And I want to change that conversation. I want the people that have parents who thought about them to be proud and say, that's exactly right. My parents loved me enough to leave me something. I'm sorry that your parents didn't do that for you. So now you go do it for your children, but don't take it from me and don't take it from my children. The reason why that they're all like this, that democratic socialists, is because if you make generational wealth something to strive for again, then they're done. Communism only has power in grievance. They only have power if they can point to people who are successful and say, those people are the reason why you're not where you want to be. And so if you have families that are moving towards that for their children, or at least their grandchildren, then it's very difficult, Don, to tell people that you should rely on government when you're relying on yourself. So you have to get people to be jealous and angry and spend all their energy marching and protesting and holding flags instead of working at home to build something for themselves. So they spend all their energy being angry at people that are building, that are creating wealth, that are creating jobs, instead of spending time mimicking those people and studying and reading and finding out what it takes to build your dreams. They end up just marching around, holding flags and being violent.
Yeah, I mean, class struggle, that's a core tenet of communism. It's well known. But, supporters of socialism, they claim or argue that, redistribution is about fairness, helping the poor. Mm-hmm. What is your response to this?
That's always by helping the poor, Don. Always. It's always Black kids, brown kids, poor people, old people. It's always the emotional blackmail. And you'll notice that the more democratic policies take hold, the more democratic socialist policies take hold, the first people that do poorly and get hurt are the Black people or the poor people or the old people. Is because they don't use that money to help anybody, because you can't help anybody. You can never pull people up, not the government anyway. Now, you and I individually, if you help somebody, like if you want to say, somebody says, hey, Don, I want to get into media. How did you get to be where you are? You can help that person up, you as an individual, but the government can't help that person. What the government can do is they can pull people down. That's what government's good at. And so this is what they tell kids. This is what they tell most of these people who have a lot of white guilt and white shame, that hate America. They buy into that. But none of that goes to help anybody. All it does is pull people down. And then obviously the people that are already on the bottom, instead of lifting them up, they go down even further, and then they rinse and repeat that message.
Okay, so Alvin, it was a pleasant convenience today that we're talking about communism and socialism, that our NTD reporter actually asked the president today in the NATO summit about socialism and communism. If you don't mind, let's just take a quick listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. President, for doing this. Iris Tao with NTD, with a sister media with the Epoch Times.
Okay.
On communism, you've been issuing a wake-up call to Americans at home about the dangers of communism, and now you're speaking on the world stage. What's your message to people both living under communist and socialist regimes, but also people living under democracies like in Europe and America, who might not have realized how close communism has come to home?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. But look, I want to get the word out because what's forming is communism in the country. I think this country, with this thing that's going around, is in more danger than it was during World War I, World War II. If you talk about September 11th, if you talk about Pearl Harbor, that was big danger. I think the concept of us going communist, because one thing that happens when you go communist, you never come back, never comes back. You die in squalor.
Okay, so Alvin, let me get your reaction to what you heard. Why do you believe democratic socialism or communism is dangerous to the American family, the American way of life?
Well, that was a great question by Iris, and Iris, she's great. What the President Trump said is correct. When he was talking about World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, those are external attacks. You're talking about a physical attack. A physical attack you can beat. It's war. It's a physical war. This democratic socialism, which is ultimately leads to communism, is far more dangerous because it's about the mind and it's about the heart. It's about taking American children and making them hate America. It's about making them hate the very system that can actually help them be successful or very, very successful. And so that is far more dangerous because once you brainwash children to hate their own country, you just let nature take its course. It's just a matter of time. And that's exactly what's happening in schools now. In the younger grades, it doesn't come in as democratic socialism or communism. It comes in as words like inclusion, human rights, be kind. Be kind to who? They don't talk about be kind to the girls who doesn't want mentally ill men in their sports. They don't talk about be kind to the families that get hurt by illegal aliens. So that's how they start training kids to look at America as an oppressor model. And I always love this quote by the great Abraham Lincoln. He said that the philosophy of the schoolhouse in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in the next. And that is exactly what President Trump is referring to. Once you have communism comes in, you can't ever roll it back.
Okay, let me ask you more about that. The appearance that communism, socialism is appealing to younger generations, would you attribute that to education the most?
100% education. 100% education, both in the K through 12 and academia. The reason why it appeals to young people is because all little children are socialists at heart. They're very giving. If you say, hey, this is expensive, should it be free? If you ask 100 4-year-olds, 100 4-year-olds will tell you, yeah, it should be free. The reason why little kids can be socialists is because their parents take care of everything. They have the luxury to be socialist, which is fantastic. That's what you have parents for. So they don't have to pay for anything. They don't ever have to pay for their mistakes. They don't have to pay for being wrong because their parents provide everything, which is great, which is fine, which is why socialism sounds so good to little kids. Obviously, as parents, our job is to teach them that while that might work in your household, even when you get older, you have to contribute to your household. You have to understand that these things need to be taken care of. And then as you get older, obviously you understand that doesn't work outside your home. But K through 12 education, make sure that you can be 18, 19, and then when you go to college, if you go to college later on, you stay that 4-year-old. You stay that naive 4-year-old. The only difference is really adorable when you're 4, but you're very, very angry and hopeless when you're 25. And that's what they're doing to children because the children can be socialists because the parents take care of everything. And then when they get older, they don't ever grow up because the K through 12 brainwashes them. So now the government becomes their parents. So the government's supposed to take care of everything. Here's the big difference, though. Your parents love you. Your parents love you and they take care of things because they love you. The government doesn't love you. They take care of things so that they can take it away from you. And that's exactly what communism does.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point that I've never actually thought about, that a household with kids essentially is a socialist household until the child can contribute later in life. That's a point I've never actually thought about. I'll just end with this question here, Alvin. So another tenet of socialism and, of course, communism is that the people's rights come from the state. So what happens when a government doesn't believe that people have unalienable rights?
Well, what the government gives, the government take away. So they can give it to you temporarily because you have the right thought process. But what happens when you don't have the right thought process? What happens when you start speaking out against government? So every time you ask government to give you something that you should do, every time you ask government to take from someone else, so because you don't want to do it, that might work out for you in the short term, but it always ends the same way. And you're playing the videos here, of course, Mouse China. The people who are the useful idiots that are holding the flags and that are holding the signs and the banners right now, you and I both know that history tells us they're the first person that they have turned against the wall, or they get shipped out like Mao did up to the fields for hard labor. Because once a useful idiot has completed his or her mission for this government, he ceases to be useful, but he's still an idiot. And he's very useless to the communist regime once they take over. So they ship him out, or they have him grab the wall and then put him in the hole. That's what all dictators do. That's what all communists do. But when you brainwash children at a very young age to be kind, welcoming schools, social emotional learning, those things, it starts very young. And then you're good with open borders. You're good with taking from the rich. You're good with all those things. And if you get your wish, you're the first idiot that they put into the hard labor or the hole.
Yeah, I mean, history lays it out very clearly that communism never works. And it's really, to your point, that it's all up to education to let kids know this history, that it doesn't work. Well, Alvin, it's always great to speak with you today. Thank you for your time. I enjoyed this conversation.
Don, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a break now. Parents reading to children at home, family eating together at dinner. We'll talk about this after the break, plus more news. Stay tuned.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
At the age of 5, I was sexually molested and became homeless at the age of 16. I had no other option. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live, and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. It was pretty tough.
No child should have to survive on the streets alone. Yet 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Instead of comfort, they are hungry and cold. Instead of safety, they face unimaginable risks. But there is a place where young people find refuge, healing, and hope. That place is Covenant House, and they urgently need your help. Please call or go online right now with your gift of just $19 a month.
Just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They showed me how to do whatever it is that I need to do to break that cycle of homelessness. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Please call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. And we'll send you this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety you're providing a young person tonight.
There's no Covenant House. Where would I be today? I am so grateful for the donors.
Right now, a young person is waiting for safety, for hope, for someone like you to care. Please call or donate now at safeplacetosleep.org.
The World Cup quarterfinal field is now set after two dramatic matches yesterday. Defending champion Argentina rallies from 2 goals down while Switzerland advances in a penalty shootout. Here's how it happened.
The World Cup quarterfinals get underway tomorrow. The 8 teams battling it out now confirmed: France, Morocco, Spain, Belgium, Norway, England, Argentina, and Switzerland. Argentina advancing after a thrilling victory in Atlanta. Egypt appeared to be on the verge of a stunning upset after building a 2-0 lead in the second half. But Argentina responded with 3 late goals to keep its title defense alive. Lionel Messi sparked the comeback with an assist and then went on to score a goal of his own to tie the game before Enzo Fernandez scored the winner just before the final whistle. The comeback sent fans into celebration across Buenos Aires.
I thought we were out, but there is something that always tells me we are in.
I trust in Argentina because I am Argentine, and I am from the local pitches. We know what it's like until the end. We are Argentine, don't forget it. Argentines never give up.
Switzerland also punched its ticket to the quarterfinals for the first time since 1954, defeating Colombia in a penalty shootout. Swiss goalkeeper Gregor Kobel making the decisive save in the shootout, and Ruben Vargas converting the winning penalty to send Switzerland through.
Insane stress, but victory in the end. It's historic. Go Switzerland. Let's go.
It's great to have a team that really plays as a unit and is truly attacking. We really saw some beautiful football.
The World Cup quarterfinals get underway Thursday with France taking on Morocco in Boston at 4 p.m. Eastern. On Friday, Spain faces Belgium in Los Angeles at 3 p.m. Eastern. Saturday features a pair of quarterfinals. Norway meeting England in Miami at 5 p.m. Defending champion Argentina takes on Switzerland in Kansas City at 9 p.m. Eastern. The 4 winners will advance to the World Cup semifinals.
At the Great American State Fair yesterday, the theme was all about the future of America. With President Trump in the White House, are people feeling optimistic about where things are heading for our youth? NTD Sam Wong was out on the fairgrounds to hear from the people.
Under President Trump, are you feeling optimistic about America's youth?
Totally optimistic, without a doubt. He's putting ethics back, he's bringing the American culture back, proud to be an American back, so those are all important things for the youth.
I am, for sure, because he's done things to keep America strong and keep America safe. And that's what it comes down to.
By him wanting to return education to the states as well, I think that making everything more locality, people have more ownership in that can only be beneficial as opposed to more of a federal bureaucracy over education.
President Trump yesterday just rang the Wall Street bell for the Trump account. What do you make of this idea?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, we're literally investing in our future. In 18 years from now, when those first, Trump accounts get, realized, it's going to be amazing.
I'm thinking that's a great idea to do. It provides other opportunities for people who may not be as financially educated.
I do think it's a good idea. I believe that we need to restore the American family. So any incentives like that to encourage people to get married, have children, I'm all for that.
First of all, it's $6 billion of private money. $6 billion of private money went into it. This kid will have, 18, 25, 35,000, depending on when they take it out. What a chunk of money. That would have been a great deal for me. That came from kind of a lower middle class family, put myself through college. That would have been a deal.
I think one of the big failures, for most high schools, whether public or private, is we don't teach financial literacy. That money goes back into the economy and finances.
I love the idea of the Trump account. It gives them a kickstart. Every kid that wants to participate, whose parents put them in there, it gives them a great kickstart. Teaches them how to save. Nobody else has done that. God bless him.
Especially that grandparents can put money in and it grows tax deferred. If you haven't opened up a Trump account for a child or a grandchild or something like that, you should do it right away.
A former judge is sentenced for obstructing ICE from arresting an illegal immigrant. What punishment she gets and what the judge handing out the sentence comments about her actions. After this break, stay tuned.
Dreamed of stepping into the timeless world of classical Chinese dance? Now you can join the Shenyun Arts Proficiency Assessment Center. Build strength, flexibility, and expressive movements with expert guidance. It's more than dance. It's sharing the true beauty of Chinese classical art. Enroll today at exams.shenyuncreations.com.
Tired of struggling with that heavy leaf blower? Introducing the Bullseye Power Blower. It delivers a massive blowing force, and yet it's so compact and lightweight. Just lock and load the rechargeable battery for long-lasting runtime. The secret is the compact turbocharged motor with jet burst technology that blasts out 21,000 RPMs of airflow. Watch this. The sheer force propels this woman across the pool. Look, use Bullseye to blow up a huge jump house. Now that's power. Even blows snow right off your vehicle in no time. Turbo clean your porch in a flash or tidy up your dirty garage floor in seconds. Get it today for just $99.99. But wait, act now and get a $20 discount. So it's only $79.99. Plus, you'll get the adjustable extension tube. Yours free. And it all comes with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-209-2313 or go to bullseyeblower.com. That's 1-800-209-2313 or order online at bullseyeblower.com. Order now.
I think building kindness in children from a very young age is foundational to their growth, to building their character, to allow them to share with each other in a classroom and in a space that is safe, like in the Ganjin World platform.
I'm a New York State certified teacher. Currently, I teach in a public school in upstate New York. And I'm also a Ganjin World Campus channel creator.
I've been fortunate to use Ganjin World's Teachers Premium channel for the past 3 years, and it's been shaping my curriculum and teaching, both in the classroom setting and in our homeschool.
If children can learn to support each other from a very young age and encourage each other and help, it'll only strengthen the future of our society.
You can just assure yourself everything on Ganjin campus, on Ganjin World, it will be safe, it will be clean.
Sparked many positive changes in our students.
Ganjin Campus equips educators worldwide with powerful Teachers Premium channels and high-quality learning resources to help children learn and grow safely online. When you support one teacher, Ganjin World matches your support to help another. Support Ganjin Campus. Scan to learn more.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump wraps up the NATO summit with new comments on defense spending. Turkey and Iran will have the latest from the summit. Ukraine continues targeting Russian energy production, striking multiple oil refineries. The Kremlin is now introducing a diesel export ban amid fuel shortages. President Trump moves to rescind Syria's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. The decision follows an executive order terminating a U.S. sanctions program. President Trump is calling on Congress to pass another reconciliation bill, why he wants to pair defense funding with election legislation. A former judge is sentenced for obstructing ICE from arresting an illegal immigrant. What punishment she gets and what the judge handling out the sentence says about the actions. The Southern Poverty Law Center is pleading not guilty to updated federal criminal charges, what prosecutors now allege in the expanded case.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump is touting what he calls a successful NATO summit, saying allies are stepping up defense spending while boosting demand for American-made military equipment. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao at the NATO summit in Turkey with latest.
So President Trump is actually now on his way back already to Washington. Now he's just left Ankara after wrapping up a press conference here with us at the NATO summit. And now a few things that really stood out from his presser wrapping up his whole trip. One is that despite his criticism of NATO allies for not spending enough and not helping the U.S. enough during the whole Iran conflict, he did leave an overall positive tone about the whole summit, saying that it's a very successful meeting, adding that there was tremendous unity inside the room with the leaders. He's also urging all NATO members to now speed up to really make an action to fulfill their vow of stepping up their spending on defense, including by meeting the 5% GDP target over the next decade. He also knows that a lot of that money will go to American military equipment. Now, speaking of American military equipment, he's also, of course, talking about his recent willingness that he signaled to sell Turkey F-35 fighter jets. Now, he calls Turkey a very loyal ally, adding that Turkey has been great to the U.S. Let's take a look.
We have a very strong relationship with Turkey. It's a very big country. It's a very powerful militarily. It's the second most powerful country in NATO. So whether or not we do that, I haven't totally made up my mind. But my inclination is to say, look, he's done everything. He's helped us in so many different ways.
Now, this whole NATO summit also comes amid fresh tensions between the U.S. and Iran, as the U.S. has now struck over 80 targets in Iran, according to Central Command, in retaliation over Iran's strikes against ships in the Strait of Hormuz, a violation of the ceasefire, according to the Trump administration. Now, President Trump today issuing harsh words toward the regime and Iran, saying that they're liars and cheaters. But he also noted during the press conference that he believes the conflict with Iran will be over soon. Let's take a look.
I think it's going to go very quickly. They hit a couple of ships, and so we hit them much harder. We may even, somebody asked before, do you think you'll hit them tonight? I said, we might. Yeah, we might. Anything that happens is going to be over very quickly. And we'll only make it safer, including for oil.
Notably, President Trump saying that tonight the U.S. could hit Iran hard again. Earlier today, the president says that he believes the ceasefire with Iran is now over amid the latest escalations. Specifically, he's also calling out Iran for violating the terms in the ceasefire, saying that the leaders there are not trustworthy, unlike leaders of any other rational, sane countries in the world. And he's also saying, though, that he will allow talks to continue, though he's also downplaying the likelihood of them going anywhere. So a lot to watch for tonight as the president is on his way back to the U.S. after this NATO summit. Now, another important note to point out is that the president is actually taking not the new Air Force One that he recently rolled out back to the U.S., but rather the old Air Force One. Now, a lot of speculation has come up about whether that's because of security concerns, as the U.S. is now in a new shooting war with Iran, and the U.S. is trying to leave from, and the president is now trying to leave from this region back to the U.S. Back to you.
And Iris, another thing, you asked the president an important question on communism. Can you tell us more about this?
Right. So in recent days, the president has really been stepping up his warning and criticism against communism. And today I asked him what his message would be to not just Americans at home, but also to people who are living under communism and socialism. Most importantly, I asked him what his message would be to those living under democracies who might not have realized how close communism has come to home. And here's what he told me. Let's watch that full conversation.
Thank you, Mr. President, for doing this. Iris Tao with NTD, with a sister media with the Epoch Times.
Okay.
On communism, you've been issuing a wake-up call to Americans at home about the dangers of communism, and now you're speaking on the world stage. What's your message to people both living under communist and socialist regimes, but also people living under democracies like in Europe and America, who might not have realized how close communism has come to home?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. But look, I want to get the word out because what's forming is communism in the country. And communism's easy to sell. I would be the greatest communist in history. I'd be right up there with Lenin. I think this country, with this thing that's going around, is in more danger than it was during World War I, World War II. If you talk about September 11th, if you talk about Pearl Harbor, that was big danger. I think the concept of us going communist, because one thing that happens when you go communist, you never come back, never comes back. You die in squalor. You die a horrible death. You die in squalor, and it gets very evil and very nasty.
And this coming amid some self-proclaimed democratic socialists have defeated traditional or establishment Democrats endorsed by the establishment of the Democratic Party in primaries in places like New York and Colorado. President Trump has warned that this upcoming midterms will be especially crucial for the direction of the U.S. Back to you.
Okay, Iris, thank you. Oil prices have hit a 2-week high as President Trump threatens additional strikes against Iran. The president says U.S. forces may seize Iran's Karg Island.
And so we hit him very hard last night. Very, very hard. Probably hit him hard again tonight. I'll give him a little warning. We're going to hit him hard tonight. We attacked Karg Island last night. We knocked out a piece. I said, don't touch the oil, because maybe we'll take over Karg Island. We may take over Karg Island. There's not a thing they can do about it.
Brent crude futures were up around 5.4% to around $78.19 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate jumped 4.6% to around $73.66 a barrel. Both benchmarks rose after the U.S. revoked a general license authorizing the sale of Iranian crude. Iran exports 90% of its crude through Karg Island, which sits 16 miles from the Iranian coast. The island lies in the northern end of the Gulf, about 300 miles northwest of the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, U.S. Central Command says more than 200, or rather 20 U.S. naval warships remain present across the Middle East. The war between Russia and Ukraine taking center stage today at the NATO summit. President Trump meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky, saying he believes both sides want to see a settlement to the more than 4-year-old war. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Ukraine's growing ability to strike deep inside Russia has changed the dynamics of the conflict.
I think that's one of the dynamics that's changed in this war over the last few months, and that is that Russians are finding it more difficult to defend their own airspace. And what we hope that means is that it's going to create the space now to negotiate the end of this war.
It's an escalation, but it's also an escalation that can help lead to an end. Ukraine's very far away. We have an ocean separating us. What I'm doing is I'm trying to save lives. I also think that it's a country with great potential. I think if this kind of brain power can go toward rebuilding the country instead of fighting a war, I think that country is going to do fantastically well.
President Trump says he would be willing to visit Ukraine. He also said he plans to speak with Russia's President Putin today and invited reporters to suggest questions for the Russian leader. He added that he believes Putin is under growing pressure to end the war. The president also said he and President Zelensky will discuss allowing Patriot air defense missiles to be manufactured in Europe under a U.S. license. President Trump saying it's a defensive weapon, which he likes better than an offensive weapon. Meanwhile, Zelensky says Russia has lost momentum on the battlefield, adding that Ukraine has gained an advantage through faster technological advances and innovation. Ukraine continues targeting Russian energy production, striking another oil refinery. Meanwhile, Russia striking cities across Ukraine, killing at least 4 civilians. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the war update.
Footage released by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky shows multiple Russian oil refineries on fire on Wednesday. Zelensky says Ukraine struck 4 different regions in Russia, with the furthest one lying roughly 1,000 miles behind the front lines. Ukraine also continues attacking Russia's so-called Shadow Fleet, releasing this footage which shows an attack on another 9 vessels. This just one day after Ukraine hit 8 vessels heading toward Crimea on a fuel delivery. Russia is now introducing a ban on diesel exports to guarantee that its domestic demand is covered. Due to Ukraine's attacks, parts of Russia are experiencing fuel shortages. Cars are seen lining up for gas, with some saying they're often waiting for 2 hours. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, at least 4 civilians are reported dead on Wednesday after the latest Russian attacks on Kiev and Kharkiv. This just days after a Russian attack killed over 20 civilians in Ukraine's capital city.
We are very thankful to bipartisan support. Thank you for this, and we will discuss.
And at the sidelines of the NATO summit in Turkey, Zelensky is meeting with the delegation of US lawmakers. The bipartisan group consists of lawmakers from both the House and the Senate.
We feel that we are more strong on the battlefield, and we have.
We hear
now,
that too, which is great.
I think that we have such chance, really chance to push Putin to negotiations this year, and that's why for this we need, how European partner says, we need unanimity.
President Trump also saying that he thinks the war might be settled soon. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
President Trump says the ceasefire with Iran is over. Joining us now to discuss is Middle East historian Jacob Alidort. He's also the Chief Research Officer and Director of American Security at the America First Policy Institute. Jacob, good afternoon to you. Thank you for being on the show. So, as of right now, in your view, is diplomacy over with Iran? Is it going anywhere?
It most certainly is not. This is part of the diplomacy has been the military and economic pressure, the unprecedented, I would say, military and economic pressure that the United States has leveled against the Iranian regime. That has been important leverage. And Iran is, as we have to recall, a global threat, a global phenomenon. And we're seeing that as well with the Strait. We're seeing it now in NATO. And how we discuss Iran has to reflect that. And I think we've been approaching exactly the right way for all those reasons. So now we continue that effort, and that's what we're seeing take place.
So, I mean, as part of the ceasefire agreement, the U.S. removed its blockade in the Strait and lifted sanctions. So Iran was the beneficiary of this ceasefire deal. Why would it attack ships in the Strait and throw all that away?
Well, Iran has been treating this ceasefire and the memorandum as it treats negotiations throughout its own history as a form of leverage. And I think that was the merit of this MOU and this 60-day period, is to determine exactly whether the Iranian regime can become serious, we can find a path towards an end state through this mechanism. But that is the explanation for why Iran has been violating the ceasefire, despite having agreed to the memorandum and the ceasefire.
So, to what extent, may I ask you, does Iran have the ability to actually control ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, to prevent them from transiting? I mean, does Iran have the ability to completely shut down the strait?
It has some ability to exploit this waterway. Obviously, we're seeing it attack its neighbors. And so ships and companies will be making risk assessments on the basis of that. So that being said, the United States has full control of this waterway, particularly through our naval presence. And so we can control it as we do. And so I think that, so Iran's ability to inflict damage and potentially disrupt is still there, but the control of the waterway is in the United States' hands.
And President Trump has said as well, the U.S. could reimpose the blockade if it wished to do so, if Iran is not doing what the U.S. wants it to do. And the president also saying the U.S. may try to take over Iran's Karg Island. Can you talk to us about this as well? Would controlling the island limit Iran's ability to fund its military, for example, and nuclear program?
It certainly would. This is the main exit point through which Iran exports its oil. And so this, in addition to the blockade that has been in place, is a substantial form of pressure on the regime, on its economic lifelines. Those funds, as we know, go directly to its proxy groups and towards its means of repression and defense manufacturing. And so I think, yes, that would be a natural step to apply more pressure on the regime.
So Iran has targeted ships from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and has launched attacks into Kuwait, Bahrain as well, and others. I mean, it almost looks like, to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like Iran is actively trying to isolate itself or trying to make more enemies than friends. Why is it doing this?
Well, I think there are two patterns going on. The first is, first of all, a state of confusion within its leadership. We know that certain elements, the IRGC-led ones, were skeptical of any negotiation. And so there is this tension within the upper echelons of their leadership. But the other piece of it, too, is that this is what it fundamentally, the regime seeks, is to export terror and to build that infrastructure of terror to ensure that that is the dominant way in which the world approaches the Middle East. And that's a reminder as well that all the instability and the threats from the region, at the very end of the day, their source is from this regime, its funding and coordination of proxy groups, of terror mechanisms. And so as that is being addressed, that is the key towards a new Middle East, one of more prosperity and stability.
Okay, so President Trump said the ceasefire is over. I don't know if Trump is going to try for another MOU because he saw what happened with this one. I don't know if that's going to happen, but what do you think is the path forward right now, given what's happened?
Well, the path forward is the same as it has been really since last summer, Operation Midnight Hammer, and then, of course, Epic Fury earlier this year. We are applying military pressure increasingly, as well as economic pressure, to bring, to end really the threats from this regime to the American people, as well as to those around the world. But that begins with bringing them to a place where they abandon their nuclear aspirations. They are no longer militarily capable of acting on their agenda. And then, of course, the support to terror proxy groups. And so that continues to be the case, whatever mechanism we use to get there, but certainly we're now shifting more towards the military pressure part. And that, as the president has said, will remain so long as we still need a way for Iran to come to the table and meet those demands.
Okay, can you talk to us about this a bit more? President Trump said maybe the U.S. should just finish the job. What does that look like in your mind? What does finishing the job when it comes to Iran look like practically?
Well, finishing the job means eliminating really its defensive infrastructure, its military infrastructure. Part of that includes its economic lifelines, which, as I mentioned, the regime funnels into its terror apparatus. And so, you know, you start, obviously, and there's been unprecedented achievements in this lane of demolishing its military infrastructure, but also cutting off the economic lifelines to prevent those funds from ending up in the wrong places. And so I think those are the two key pillars of this approach.
Okay, understood, Jacob. Thank you for speaking with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Vice President J.D. Vance addresses the administration's push to combat fraud. His remarks next after this break.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 250 local food banks like the ones in your community. And demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're nourishing what's next for neighbors across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get 2 free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
Vice President J.D. Vance is in Milwaukee today, where he spoke on the Trump administration's efforts to combat fraud. Let's listen in.
Thank you. It's great to be here. How we doing, Milwaukee? There we go. So, we had an event earlier today. Please take a seat. Take a seat. We had an event earlier today at the Pfister Hotel in downtown Milwaukee. Beautiful place. But I gotta be honest, I had a little bit of PTSD because the last time that I was in that hotel was the 2024 RNC convention. And if y'all remember, I flew to Milwaukee the Monday morning that the RNC convention starts, and I get there, and I have no idea if I'm the VP nominee or not. So I get to my hotel, which is not the Pfister, it's at the other hotel for the RNC convention, and I get a phone call. Actually, it was a text message from Susie Wiles, who was the campaign manager in 2024, and the text message says, JD, you just missed a very important phone call. I'm like, oh no. So I call the President of the United States, and I say, sir, I hear I missed an important phone call. And he said, JD, you did miss a very important phone call, and now I'm going to have to pick somebody else. And like, you know, my entire body clenches up. I'm like, is this real? And then at the same time, my 7-year-old, who's now 9, but at the time, my 7-year-old boy is talking to me about Pokemon cards. So I'm trying to talk to the President of the United States about becoming the vice presidential nominee. And meanwhile, my 7-year-old is talking to me about Charmander cards, and I have no idea what's going on. But so walking through the Pfister Hotel, I've got this like moment of remembrance of the moment where I almost missed the president's phone call. But here I am. It worked out. I'm the Vice President of the United States, thanks to you. So we're here to talk about fraud. We're here to talk about protecting your taxpayer money. And most importantly, we're here to talk about protecting the programs that exist, that are funded by the generosity of the people in this room and that ought go to the people they're meant for and not to make fraudsters rich. It's a very, very simple principle. Now, there are a lot of people that I have to thank and make this work possible. And first of all, I've got to thank our great CMS administrator, Dr. Oz. Where is Dr. Oz at? He might be backstage, but Dr. Oz and our team at the Fraud Task Force, Kim Brandt and Scott Brady. Kim and Scott, please give a round of applause to these guys. They have protected more of your money than anybody. Now, we could not have done what we did were it not for the support of our incredible congressional allies. We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that we've saved you all billions and billions of dollars that was going to fraudsters. That's money in your pocket, which is exactly where it belongs. But we couldn't do that without a couple of great congressional representatives, and in particular, I've got to give a shout out to Representative Brian Stile. Where's Brian Stile? Please stand up, man. He has been a phenomenal champion for the state of Wisconsin. He has taken the fraud issue more seriously than anybody. So, Brian, thank you so much for what you're doing. I've also got to give a shout out to our great Representative Derek Van Orden. Derek, please stand up. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And I got to say, it would be so nice to have a governor in this incredible state, one of the most beautiful states in the union, especially this time of year. I love Wisconsin, or as you guys say, Wisconsin. Love Wisconsin, but we have got to have a governor who takes fraud as seriously as the President of the United States, who's trying to save your money as much as we are in Washington, and that's Tom Tiffany. Tom Tiffany is who we got to elect the next governor. And I also want to give a shout out to Representative Glenn Grothman. Where is Glenn at? Glenn, thank you for everything that you're doing. God bless you. And then Representative Tony Weed. Where is Tony at? Tony, thank you so much, man. So proud of you. And of course, he's a little far away from home, but our representative, or not yet a representative, runner up for North. Look, this, stand up. Good-looking guy, young guy, is going to make the next great congressman. So here's the crazy thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have two parties that disagree about tax policy or regulatory policy. We've got a party that is fighting for fraud and a party that is fighting against fraud. And I don't know about you, but how about we give more authority, more power, and more influence to the party that is trying to save your money and send the fraudsters to prison? That's all we're trying to do. Now, let me talk about a few of the things that we've been accomplishing here. So the very day after the State of the Union address, where the president makes me the leader of the anti-fraud task force, what we do is we go about the business of stopping these companies that are set up to provide durable medical equipment. You know, this is hospital beds, oxygen tanks, things like that, things that the American people need, and the Medicare program exists to ensure that our seniors have access to. Now, what happens, though, is that there are people setting up these programs, setting up companies that sell durable medical equipment, and they're not selling a single product, but they are billing for lots of product. Billions and billions of dollars was being billed to you, was being billed to the program that exists to ensure that our seniors have health care. And you know what that means. Number one, the fraudsters were getting rich, but number two, our seniors who desperately needed those resources, who needed the hospital beds and the oxygen tanks, they weren't getting them because the fraudsters were getting rich off the generosity of the American taxpayer. So you know what we did? We came in and we said, we are not sanctioning a single one of these companies to defraud the American people. If you say that you're going to provide medical equipment to our seniors, we're going to confirm that you're actually delivering product before we pay a single one of those bills, and we save billions of dollars. And you know what happened is we had great support from Brian Stile and Derek Van Orden and all of the other great congressional representatives to keep that money out of the hands of fraudsters to ensure that it went to the seniors who needed it. And you know what happened? Not a single congressional Democrat stood up and said, we are going to fight back against fraud. And that's the problem with modern congressional Democrats. You know, I was raised by blue-collar Democrats. They were Christian, patriotic people, union steel workers who loved the United States of America. But my mama and papa, the people who raised me, they supported Democrats because they felt like the Democrats of 20, 30, 40 years ago had better policy. Now, you may agree or disagree with that, but today, this is not about better or worse policy. This is about who is supporting the fraudsters and who's supporting you. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if Mama and Papa were alive today, they would not recognize the modern Democratic Party in 2026. They would not recognize a party that tries to send your money to illegal aliens instead of our hardworking seniors who earned those benefits and ought to have access to them. They would not recognize a party that raises your taxes so that we can give more money to the fraudsters, and they would not recognize a party that rewards the fraudsters rather than sending them to prison. So I ask you a very simple question. When you come to vote in November, are you going to vote for the pro-fraud party? Are you going to vote for the party who is sending your tax money to the fraudsters? No, we're going to support the party that is sending the fraudsters to jail and is protecting your money. We're going to vote for Derek Van Orden and for Brian Stile. Now, I want to talk about another fraud crackdown, and this is almost hard to believe. But, you know, we have a program called the H-1B visa program. And this goes to show how broad-based the fraud task force is we're fighting for your taxpayer money, but we're also making sure that fraudsters don't take advantage of these visa programs. Now, why does this program exist? This is a visa program that was set up to ensure that if you were a brilliant technology person or a brilliant scientist or a brilliant doctor, you could come to the United States and get access to this visa program. But you know what's happening way too much? Is that big corporations and fraudsters overseas are using this program to undercut the wages of American workers. So you know what we're doing in the Trump administration? We're saying no more. If you were trying to take advantage of that visa program, you are not allowed in to the United States of America. Today, I'm proud to announce that the Federal Department of Labor has started dozens of subpoenas and investigations into foreign fraudsters who are trying to take advantage of the H-1B visa program. Here's a simple principle. Ladies and gentlemen, American jobs ought to go to American workers and not foreign fraudsters, and the Department of Labor is fighting back against it. Now here, I want to talk about something else here. To my right, to your left. This is a program, again, there is so much fraud, or there was so much fraud in the federal government, we're taking it off of the books. But so much fraud, I didn't even know this program existed, okay? So what is allografts? These are the, skin grafts that people get when they get a wound or they get a burn, a very, very important medical procedure. But a medical procedure that was being radically taken advantage of. So if you go back to 2019, 2020, 2021, you see less than $1 billion is paid for these skin grafts. Again, these are very important procedures for the people who need them. What happens under the Biden administration? All of a sudden, we go from less than $1 billion spent on these skin grafts to $15 billion in 2025. And actually, in 2026, the number was supposed to be $25 billion. But because we cut down on fraudulent payments and fraudulent billing, we saved you $25 billion. That number is now well below $1 billion today. That's a simple, good government action. And again, my friends, we want the people who deserve these treatments, who need these treatments, to have access to them. If we spend all your money giving these treatments to fraudsters instead of giving them to the people who need them, then those programs aren't going to exist anymore. And I just have this look, we're a generous country. I love that we're a generous country. My family sometimes benefited from these programs that ensured that poor children would have a bite to eat or would be able to see a doctor. I sometimes had a meal because the American people were generous enough to say that we're not going to let our young American kids go hungry because their parents can't afford a bite to eat. I think that's an amazing, amazing thing about our great country is we're generous enough to lend a helping hand to our fellow citizens in need. But when your government allows, whether in the state or the federal level, when we allow that money that ought by rights go to feed poor children, but instead goes to fraudsters, we destroy the social fabric of the United States of America. So what I take very seriously as your vice president, what Derek Van Orden and Brian Stile take very seriously as your congressional representatives, and what Donald Trump takes seriously as the president of the United States is this sacred promise that it exists between the government of the United States and its citizens. That when you pay your tax dollars, it goes to the people who need it, not to the fraudsters, which is why we're throwing those fraudsters in prison. It's exactly where they belong. Let me talk about another program. So we have, again, these things that I didn't even know existed until I got into politics. We have a program, an amazing program, to help young mothers. And I care about this very personally. Usha is currently pregnant with baby number 4. She is 37 weeks pregnant, and I appreciate your prayers. I love you, honey, if you're watching at home. But we have a program to ensure that at-risk moms can get the prenatal care that they need. Now, you may not know this, but one of the leading causes of infant mortality in the world is actually not what happens when the baby is born. It's what happens before the baby is born. When the mom can't get the medical treatment she needs, when the mom can't get access to the resources that she needs. Okay, we try to solve that problem. And again, we are able to do so in part because of the generosity of the American taxpayer. But you know what? In Milwaukee, with the government of this state looking the other way, we had people who were allowing fraudsters to get rich off of that prenatal care without providing a dime of services to the young moms who need it. And I want to point to this woman. Now, I want to be clear that the woman in the back did nothing wrong. But look at this woman in the front with the smug look and the Louis Vuitton bag. A woman who quite literally stole from young mothers who needed prenatal care, and the state of Wisconsin, ladies and gentlemen, had to scale down that program because of insufficient funds. So that this woman could go and buy a Louis Vuitton bag, there were young mothers in Wisconsin who did not get access to the prenatal care that they needed. That endangers the moms, that endangers the babies. And you know what? Derek Van Orden and Brian Stile fought against it, and the congressional Democrats that they go to work with every single day fought for it. So here's a simple question, here's a simple principle. If you fight to take money away from needy moms and give it to this woman and her Louis Vuitton bags, you should have your ass thrown the hell out of Washington, D.C. You don't belong there. You don't belong anywhere in a position of influence. And I'm sorry, excuse my language. I know we got a couple of kids in the audience. My wife, I love her. She gets on me all the time because I was raised by a gun-toting, F-bomb dropping grandmother. And we've got an F-bomb dropping grandmother right over here, I can tell. And, you know, old habits die hard, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I'll say. Even as vice president, old habits die hard, but I try to work on it. And here's what I want to close with, and we'll take some questions from the reporters. We have an opportunity to keep the momentum of the last couple of years, and particularly the last few months. We can keep on fighting fraud, or we can reward the fraudsters. We can kick criminal illegal aliens out of our country, or we can reward people for stealing your tax money. We can protect those moms who need that prenatal care, or we can give it away to people who are trying to take advantage of you and take advantage of the system. This is not a normal election because we're not running against people who maybe have different ideas about tax policy or regulatory policy. To the people watching at home, I understand you're of course not going to agree with the president and the vice president about every single issue. But what I hope we can all agree on is the simple principle that the people's government exists to fight for the people and not the fraudsters. So, thank you. So please help us out by sending Derek Van Orden and Brian Stile back to Washington, D.C. Keep the pro-fraud party out of Washington. Keep these guys fighting for you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here. Now, I'm going to take some questions here. But it's funny, you know, sometimes people call, I got to make sure it's not the president. He's over at NATO right now. Okay, it's not the president. But let me start with the local reporters here. And go ahead, guys, and fire away. I'm an open book. I'll answer any question.
Mr. Vice President, welcome to Milwaukee. Welcome to Wisconsin. Welcome back. I'm Julia Fellow with 620 WTMJ. You've been overseas. The president is just coming back from Turkey. Memorandum of Understanding. We're looking at gas prices, what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz. The president was saying that he was going to strike tonight, like now. So can you tell us what is going on right now? Where are we with the war in Iran?
Yeah, so look, we made a deal with the Iranians, and we had to step back a little bit. Before you even get to the deal, the simple fact is that thanks to the incredible efforts of our amazing U.S. military, to Pete Hegseth and Dan Kane, the President of the United States, just amazing people. But most of all, thanks to the troops, we came into the situation with maximum leverage and maximum strength. Their nuclear program was destroyed. Their conventional military was destroyed. And you've got some people within the Iranian system who are saying, you know what? We want to change our relationship with the United States. We want to turn over a new leaf. And the president said, okay, we will sit down at the table and negotiate and see if the smart people in that system can take over from the crazy people. Well, here's the basic deal that we cut. The basic deal that we cut was, we'll lift our blockade if you stop shooting at ships. But if you shoot at ships, we are going to punch back, and we're going to punch back harder than ever before. That was the deal. They said they would stop shooting at ships. And what happened 24 hours ago? They started shooting at ships again. Now, they were good. They were well behaved for about a week, but then they started shooting at ships. So the deal is very simple. If they shoot at ships, we're going to knock the hell out of them, and it's that simple, and that's the basic way it's going to work. Now, the president maintains a lot of options. I'm obviously not going to tell you exactly what's going to happen tonight, but the president has said to them very simply, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be open. That means oil and gas is going to flow to the American people. That's why we see gas prices starting to come down. That's why we see the oil prices so low, is because the president said that crucial artery through which we ship a lot of the world's energy, that artery has got to remain open. And that is what the Iranians have to know. If they try to close it down, there's going to be a response for the American military. It's that simple. That's the deal. They can either follow it, or they can have exactly what happened to them last night. It's just going to keep on happening until they open up that lane and stop shooting at ships. It's simple. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Matt Smith from WISN TV in Milwaukee. The president has talked about election fraud as well a lot. Just yesterday, Milwaukee's mayor sent your office a letter saying he would love to meet with you and some election officials here in the city after agents started asking questions and interviewing people about 2020 again. So I'm curious, what can you tell us about the FBI investigation here in Milwaukee into 2020, and why are they re-looking at that election here in the city?
Well, first of all, if I did get the letter from the mayor of Milwaukee, and he wants to meet, and he's welcome to come to Washington, D.C. I'll sit down and meet with him. We don't have time to meet with him today because we got to get back to Washington, but I'm happy to meet with him. I will say it was a little bit of he doth protest too much. because I came here to talk about financial fraud. I came here to talk about the fraud against our prenatal program for our young moms. And some guy sends me a letter, the mayor of Milwaukee, and says, we don't do any election fraud, we don't do any election fraud, we don't do any election fraud. And my response to that is, you know what, it kind of reminds me of like a couple weeks ago, I get home to the Naval Observatory, the nicest public housing anywhere in the United States of America, and my 6-year-old greets me, and I love my little boy, but he's a little mischievous, and he gives me a big hug. He says, Daddy, I'm glad you're home. I didn't steal any of the cookies. I said, huh, that's interesting that you volunteered that when I wasn't even talking about that. Well, of course, he stole the cookies. So when I hear a guy protesting out of nowhere, I did not do any election fraud, I did not do any election fraud, it makes me wonder, why is that guy protesting so aggressively? It's a little odd. The second thing I'll say is, look, there's, of course, this big debate about how much election fraud happens in the United States of America. You guys know my views. We're not going to settle this here. First of all, any election fraud is too much election fraud in the world's greatest and oldest constitutional republic. And number two, if Democrats want us to stop talking about election fraud, I make them a simple deal. Pass the Save America Act and get voter ID, and we'll stop talking about election fraud. We are the only advanced democracy anywhere in the entire world that doesn't require you to show a voter ID to vote. It's simple. Just give us election integrity laws, give us voter ID, and then we will have the confidence to say to the American people there's no cheating. But when they say, number one, we don't want voter ID, and number two, there's not that much cheating in our elections, it's natural for all of us to say, not much cheating is still way too much cheating, so stop it and give the American people voter ID. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Vanessa Kelson, Gray Media. What will happen if Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers does not hand over the SNAP rolls or the Medicaid enrollment data to your administration?
Well, look, we're going to look at what we can do to force him to give her that data. And just to give some context to the question for those of you who don't know. So the SNAP program, which is one of the most important programs that exists in the federal government, it ensures that low-income families have enough food to eat when they're down on their luck. Would you be shocked to know that most states do not do eligibility checks for the SNAP rolls anywhere? Doesn't happen in California, doesn't happen in a lot of other places. I'm the Vice President of the United States, and I could not tell you, not because I don't want to, but I cannot tell you whether the state of Wisconsin has illegal aliens who are ineligible, who are receiving food stamp benefits paid for by your tax dollars. And the reason why I don't know the answer is because the governor of this state will not give us the data that allows us to say, well, this person is eligible, this person is an illegal alien, scratch them off the list. Now ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, that is, in my view, borderline criminal. If you are administering a program collecting billions and billions of dollars and you don't check whether the people you're giving that money to are actually entitled to it, that is a complete scam that's being perpetrated on every single person in this room. So what we've asked the governor to do is just give us the data so that we can check whether you've got illegal aliens on your food stamp rolls, and he's saying absolutely not. And I think the only plausible explanation for that is that he cares more about protecting illegal aliens than he does the good citizens of Wisconsin. It's a scam, and it has to stop. Let's do a couple more questions. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Vice President. Ellie Liberté, Channel 3 out of Madison. Now, last month, the Wisconsin Department of Justice joined a multi-suit lawsuit against the Trump administration over its implementation of new Medicaid work requirements. Our Attorney General wrote, quote, the Trump administration is lawlessly trying to restrict access to Medicaid coverage. What's your response?
Well, my response is, again, we have what you might call a social contract in the United States of America. It exists between all of us fellow citizens, between those citizens and their government. And the basic idea is when I hand over $1 to the federal government, I expect my government officials to spend it wisely, to make sure it's not going to fraud. And if you have somebody who's receiving those benefits, to make sure that they're at least looking for a job before they get a lot of free money from the federal government. So when I hear the Attorney General of this state saying that we don't want to confirm that people are looking for work before they receive federal benefits, my natural question is, why are you so against people looking for a job? That's it. We're not saying that we want anybody to go without medical benefits. What we're saying is that we want you, if you're going to receive these benefits, we want you at least to try to find a job. And I think in the same way that every single person in this room and every single tax-paying citizen of Wisconsin hands their money over to the government, it's totally reasonable for them to expect the beneficiaries of that money to at least be looking for work. That's the contract, and if you violate that contract, you shouldn't get a dime of federal money. Why don't we do one more question?
Hi, I'm Mary Spicuzza with Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel newspaper. My coworker and I started investigating prenatal fraud here in Milwaukee almost a decade ago, and we noticed that state officials started investigating, federal officials, federal prosecutors. So two-part question, do you think because all those people came together, is that an example of people working together and doing what they're supposed to do? And what do you do now to make sure that the women and babies who are supposed to be getting help are actually getting help?
Yeah, so first of all, the most important way to ensure that the people who deserve the help, who need the help, actually get it, is to cut down on the fraud. Because money doesn't grow on trees, and there are limited resources. This is one of the reasons why I personally care so much about fraud. I want to save every single one of you money, but I also want to ensure that when a young mom goes in to get some prenatal vitamins, and she can't afford them, she's able to get access to them because a fraudster hasn't taken advantage of that program. Part of what we're trying to do is to ensure that these programs exist for the next generation. Look, just take one of the biggest federal programs out there, Social Security. People pay into Social Security for their entire working lives. Every single day, or every 2 weeks, I should say, we get a paycheck, and we see on that paycheck the amount of money that is going to Social Security. I am worried that if we don't stop sending Social Security checks to illegal immigrants, the people who paid into it for their entire lives are never going to have access to that money. That's a scam, and it's totally unacceptable. So the most important thing we can do to ensure those benefits exist for the people who earned them is to make sure that the fraudsters don't get them, that the American people do. But you also asked about this mail fraud investigation, and absolutely, the answer to your question is yes. I think that's a great example of the federal government and the state government working together to cut down on fraud, and we want to see that model replayed and replicated on a number of programs. The problem is there are certain programs that, for whatever reason, most, not all, by the way, because I'll give great credit to the blue state governors who are working with us, but most blue state governors, if you want to check, for example, whether illegal aliens are getting food stamps, most of them are saying, we're not going to do that. If you want to check if illegal aliens are getting access to Medicaid health benefits, most of the blue state governors are not willing to do that. And I think it's just sad that this should be a bipartisan issue. If you're a Democrat and you believe that Medicaid should exist to provide good health benefits to people who can't afford them, then why don't you want to cut down on the fraud? If you care more about fraud than you do about these health benefits, it starts to make it look that you care more about illegal aliens than you do about the citizens of Wisconsin. That's what it looks like to me. So I'll say to the governor of this state, even though he's not of my political party, the attorney general, anybody else, you have an open offer to come into the White House and to talk about how we can combat fraud together. I will work with you. I will make it easier. I will give you federal resources. I will do whatever I need to do. But it's got to be a two-way street. If you're hiding the food stamp rolls because you don't want to tell us whether illegal aliens are getting food stamp, that's not cooperation. That is you hiding criminal conduct from the American people, and it's a scandal, and it absolutely has to stop. So let me just close here with an observation, and that's that, we're getting into election season, and you all obviously care a lot about politics, and sometimes in election season it starts to feel a little bit like red team and blue team. People look at the fundraising numbers, they read the media stories, they read the scandals, particularly in Maine, if you're into political scandals. Might I recommend a Google search on Graham Plattner? But we ought to remember that this is not red team versus blue team. This is about whether the American people get wise and honest political leadership or whether they are represented by a bunch of crazy people in their Congress. Every 2 years, the American people get to vote on who represents them in the United States Congress and the United States Senate. Every 2 years, we come together as a country and make this determination together. My pitch to the voters out there, especially the voters who haven't made up their minds, on Derek Van Orden, on Brian Stile, on all of our great congressional representatives, it's not that you're going to agree with us every single time. Because nobody, even a committed Republican, is not going to agree with me on every single issue. It's not that we're always going to see eye to eye. What I will tell you is that what separates Derek Van Orden, Brian Stile, and all these great congressional representatives from their Democrat counterparts is that right now the Democrats don't even pretend to be fighting for you. Now, we could disagree, for example, about what should the police department's budget be. That's a reasonable, rational conversation for Republicans and Democrats to have. That's not the conversation that we're having. We're having the conversation about whether we support our police officers, which is what Republicans want to do, or whether we abolish police departments, which is what the Democrats are proposing to do. We can talk about what our exact immigration level should be. Of course, reasonable minds are going to disagree. But that's not the debate that we're having. The Democrats that are running today are running on abolishing ICE and opening up the American southern border. We can disagree. We can disagree about tax policy and what the optimal tax rate should be. That's not what they're doing. The Democrats are running on confiscating your money and giving it to fraudsters and illegal aliens. They openly brag about fighting not for you, but fighting for some of the worst human beings that exist anywhere in the world. This is not a normal election. And so my request to you is not that you say that the vice president is right about every issue. My request to you is that you send people to Washington who are of good character and recognize that you are their boss, not the fraudsters, not the illegal aliens, and not the bosses of the 21st century Democratic Party. There are a lot of Democrats out there, a lot of independents, and of course a lot of Republicans who look to Washington and don't recognize the congressional leadership of the Democratic Party in 2026. Well, I'd say to you, if you don't recognize that congressional leadership, you can join this movement. If you want an American political party that fights for the police instead of against them, vote for Derek Van Orden and Brian Stile. If you want an American political party that cuts your taxes instead of raising your taxes to give it to fraudsters, then you got to support Glenn Grothman and Tony Weed. If you want somebody who ensures that whether you're rich or poor or black or white, public safety should be the God-given right of every single American, that you ought to be able to walk down the street without the fear of being mugged, that you ought to be able to take your family to a nice dinner downtown without having your car jacked. If you believe in basic public safety for all of us, rich or poor, then send Michael Alfonso to Congress. Don't send the crazy person running against him. My point is that this is not a normal election of people who disagree about this or that issue. By and large, there are exceptions, of course, but by and large, the Democrats have thrown their lot in with the people who want to abolish the police, who want to open the border and want to give your money to fraudsters instead of moms who need it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a simple request. When you go to the ballot in November, when you cast your vote, send us people to Washington, D.C. who fight for you and send the crazy people back home where they belong. God bless you, and thank you for having me here in Milwaukee.
And you were just watching Vice President J.D. Vance in Milwaukee right now, where he spoke on the Trump administration's efforts to combat fraud. And he's saying that one of the top priorities of the administration is protecting taxpayer money from fraud. And the efforts have saved taxpayers billions of dollars by targeting fraudulent government payments. And at the end, he said if Americans want people in Congress who represent their interests, then they should vote for the Republican candidates. Okay, let's take a break. A former judge is sentenced for obstructing ICE from arresting an illegal immigrant, what punishment she gets, and what the judge handing out the sentence says about her actions after this break.
With Select Specs £6 specs, you can get 10 pairs of prescription glasses for just £60. That includes frames, prescription lenses, and delivery free to your door. And what makes this really special is each pair can have a different prescription. So it's glasses for everyone. SelectSpecs.com/£6. 10 frames, all with prescription lenses and delivery for just £60. You don't get that on the high street. Right now you can save an extra 5% with offer code CG5OFF.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Welcome back to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump wraps up the NATO summit with new comments on defense spending. Turkey and Iran will have the latest from the summit. Ukraine continues targeting Russian energy production, striking multiple oil refineries. The Kremlin is now introducing a diesel export ban amid fuel shortages. President Trump moves to rescind Syria's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. The decision follows an executive order terminating a U.S. sanctions program. A former judge is sentenced for obstructing ICE from arresting an illegal immigrant. What punishment she gets and what the judge handing out the sentence says about her actions. Mysterious metal spheres wash up on an Australian beach. Plus, an enormous paper airplane takes flight set to break world record.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for joining us. President Trump is touting what he calls a successful NATO summit, saying allies are stepping up defense spending while boosting demand for American-made military equipment. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao at the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, with the latest.
So President Trump is actually now on his way back already to Washington. Now he's just left Ankara after wrapping up a press conference here with us at the NATO summit. And now a few things that really stood out from his presser wrapping up his whole trip. One is that despite his criticism of NATO allies for not spending enough and not helping the U.S. enough during the whole Iran conflict, he did leave an overall positive tone about the whole summit, saying that it's a very successful meeting, adding that there was tremendous unity inside the room with the leaders. He's also urging all NATO members to now speed up to really make an action to fulfill their vow of stepping up their spending on defense, including by meeting the 5% GDP target over the next decade. He also knows that a lot of that money will go to American military equipment. Now, speaking of American military equipment, he's also, of course, talking about his recent willingness that he signaled to sell Turkey F-35 fighter jets. Now, he calls Turkey a very loyal ally, adding that Turkey has been great to the U.S. Let's take a look.
We have a very strong relationship with Turkey. You know, it's a very big country. It's a very powerful militarily. It's the second most powerful country in NATO. So whether or not we do that, I haven't totally made up my mind, but my inclination is to say, look, he's done everything. He's helped us in so many different ways.
Now, this whole NATO summit also comes amid fresh tensions between the U.S. and Iran, as the U.S. has now struck over 80 targets in Iran, according to Central Command, in retaliation over Iran's strikes against ships in the Strait of Hormuz, a violation of the ceasefire, according to the Trump administration. Now, President Trump today issuing harsh words toward the regime and Iran, saying that they're liars and cheaters. But he also noted during the press conference that he believes the conflict with Iran will be over soon. Let's take a look.
I think it's going to go very quickly. They hit a couple of ships, and so we hit them much harder. We may even, somebody asked before, do you think you'll hit them tonight? I said, we might. Yeah, we might. Anything that happens is going to be over very quickly. And we'll only make it safer, including for oil.
Notably, President Trump saying that tonight the U.S. could hit Iran hard again. Earlier today, the president says that he believes the ceasefire with Iran is now over amid the latest escalations. Specifically, he's also calling out Iran for violating the terms in the ceasefire, saying that the leaders there are not trustworthy, unlike leaders of any other rational, sane countries in the world. And he's also saying, though, that he will allow talks to continue, though he's also downplaying the likelihood of them going anywhere. So a lot to watch for tonight as the president is on his way back to the U.S. after this NATO summit. Now, another important note to point out is that the president is actually taking not the new Air Force One that he recently rolled out back to the U.S., but rather the old Air Force One. Now, a lot of speculation has come up about whether that's because of security concerns, as the U.S. is now in a new shooting war with Iran, and the U.S. is trying to leave from, and the president is now trying to leave from this region back to the U.S. Back to you.
And Iris, another thing, you asked the president an important question on communism. Can you tell us more about this?
Right. So in recent days, the president has really been stepping up his warning and criticism against communism. And today I asked him what his message would be to not just Americans at home, but also to people who are living under communism and socialism. Most importantly, I asked him what his message would be to those living under democracies who might not have realized how close communism has come to home. And here's what he told me. Let's watch that full conversation.
Thank you, Mr. President, for doing this. Iris Tao with NTD, with a sister media with the Epoch Times.
Okay.
On communism, you've been issuing a wake-up call to Americans at home about the dangers of communism. And now you're speaking on the world stage. What's your message to people both living under communist and socialist regimes, but also people living under democracies like in Europe and America, who might not have realized how close communism has come to home?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. But look, I want to get the word out because what's forming is communism in the country. And communism's easy to sell. I would be the greatest communist in history. I'd be right up there with Lenin. I think this country, with this thing that's going around, is in more danger than it was during World War I, World War II. If you talk about September 11th, if you talk about Pearl Harbor, that was big danger. I think the concept of us going communist, because one thing that happens when you go communist, you never come back, never comes back. You die in squalor. You die a horrible death. You die in squalor. And it gets very evil and very nasty.
And this coming amid some self-proclaimed democratic socialists have defeated traditional or establishment Democrats endorsed by the establishment of the Democratic Party in primaries in places like New York and Colorado. President Trump has warned that this upcoming midterms will be especially crucial for the direction of the U.S. Back to you.
Okay, Iris, thank you. The Trump administration is moving to rescind Syria's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. President Trump saying he has notified Congress. Trump met with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara today during the NATO summit in Ankara. The decision to remove Syria from the list follows Trump's executive order last month terminating a U.S. sanctions program. Trump has also expressed support for al-Shara's actions against Islamic State. Al-Shara was a commander of al-Qaeda's Nusra Front in Syria before cutting ties with the group in 2016. He then led a coalition of rebel factions in late 2024 to topple former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Congress will conduct a 45-day review before the decision can take effect. President Trump says as far as he's concerned, the memorandum of understanding with Iran is over. And joining us now to discuss more is Rod Martin, geopolitical analyst and CEO of Martin Capital. So thank you for joining us today. Trump says he thinks it's a waste of time to be talking with Iranian leaders. What's your reaction at this moment after everything that's happened?
Well, that just tells us that he has used the time he bought with the ceasefire to do whatever it is he's setting up, which may include training key people inside Iran, arming them, any number of things. This president has negotiated some of the biggest deals in the history of the world. He always knew that these people could not really be dealt with. And it's not just that, it's that he has managed through this process to get them to fight each other. We have seen assassinations and counter-assassinations between the Mullah faction, the IRGC faction. We have seen all kinds of splits again and again. A couple weekends ago, the Assembly of Experts, which is the mullahs who elect the new Ayatollah, voted 3-1 against a key initiative of the IRGC, and then had to say, oops, our bad, we didn't mean that. He has them pitted against each other. They were never going to make a deal. But on the other hand, this is Donald Trump, so he always leaves himself multiple ways to win. One of those, of course, is, at least in theory, negotiation. But the Iranians have proven that they cannot really be negotiated with. They have proven it to the Gulf Arab states that obviously have been a little bit slow on the uptake about that, because the Iranians keep attacking them when they aren't attacking Iran. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a much more solid coalition against Iran than ever before, and we're going to get to the end of this.
Okay, so what is Iran's guiding ideology here? Because it seems like from what you're describing, they're making more enemies than friends.
They absolutely are, and it's just shocking to watch. I mean, if you're Iran, why on earth do you want to hit Kuwait or Bahrain or Qatar or the UAE or Saudi Arabia? Why do you want to do that? Don't you want to look like the reasonable player that is showing Muslim solidarity against the great Satan in North America? But no, that hasn't been their take from the first. From the first, they have taken out their wrath more on the Gulf Arab states, really, than anybody else, even Israel. And it's just an amazing thing to watch. Now, some of that is the factionalization. We talked about this quite a bit back in March about their much vaunted Mosaic defense, which decentralizes command into 31 separate regions across the country. Well, that was always a recipe for factionalization. And some of these guys just go and do things without actually having direction from the center. But the center is fractured too. And we've been seeing that since the first Islamabad talks. These guys hate each other. The Ayatollah, if he is even alive, hasn't been seen in public, was kept away from his father's funeral. They will not let him come out in public. That tells you everything you need to know. The fight is over internal control. Some of these people are, in answer to your question, motivated heavily by 12er Shia Islam, a subset of a subset of Islam with a particularly militant bent. Some of these people are just motivated by power or by staying alive. And those cross currents are playing out in Tehran as we speak. And now they've poked the bear one time too many.
Okay, so if you're saying some of these people are motivated by power or staying alive, and you're saying that there's fractures at the center. Now, when you hear the statement, and I saw this today, when Iranian officials say that the U.S. must recognize the new Iranian order in the Strait of Hormuz, how would you interpret that? Is it an empty statement giving everything that you just described just now?
That is possibly the emptiest statement in human history. Iran does not have a navy. They have some speedboats that can go harass shipping. They have some missiles left that we're probably about to finish off. They have spent the last 60 days moving things around the country that perhaps we had not found in March and April, and now we know exactly where they put them. So we're just going to blow all those up too. Also, the U.S. Navy hasn't moved. We're in the same spot we were. We can clamp down with the blockade instantly, which I assume is probably what the president is about to do. He's talking about seizing Karg Island. Well, that's 90% of Iran's exports, even if we don't obstruct them. And by the way, 90% of Iran's exports go to China. So the Chinese aren't thrilled about what's happening here. This is going to significantly increase prices there and put pressure on their domestic situation as it was back during the hostilities in March. None of this is good for Iran, but there is a fanaticism among the Mullah faction in particular about their religious position. There is a fanaticism among the IRGC about partly theology, but mostly power, and they're just not dislodgeable. They're going to continue to fight until we kill them. And my guess is Donald Trump is ready for that.
Okay, so if we fight until they're defeated, does that mean you're thinking that military action will likely resume? Because as we've seen, Iran doesn't really behave like or have the rational thinking of a normal country. Does that essentially mean war or military action is the only way, the only path forward?
Look, Donald Trump can pull a rabbit out of a hat sometimes, so maybe you get to some kind of settlement. But yes, I think the answer is military. I don't think there's any way around it. And dealing with Iran is a centerpiece, not the only centerpiece, but a centerpiece of the Trump foreign policy, not because of Iran itself, but because Iran has been, for much of the last several decades, the centerpiece of all conflict in the Middle East. If you're talking about the Houthis, if you're talking about Hamas, if you're talking about Hezbollah, if you're talking about Syria, if you're talking about the Shia militias in Iraq, anywhere you look where there is a conflict, it is armed, directed, and funded from Tehran. And we are rolling all that up on the ground. Even in Iraq, the new Iraqi government is arresting key Shia militia leaders and disarming those militias, which is really the final nail in the coffin of the external Iranian empire, such as it has been. But you still have to deal with the head of the snake. And there's just no getting around the fact, if they're given time, they will reconstitute. They will start funding all those conflicts again. They'll create some new ones we haven't heard of. But your assessment, Don, is exactly right on another point. This is why you can't ever let them have a nuclear weapon, because they don't deal with the world like rational countries. If the Russians have nuclear weapons, you have a pretty good idea of exactly what would deter their use. If the Chinese have nuclear weapons, you have a very good understanding of what they will and will not do with them, and you can act against it. With the Iranians, they want to burn the world down. And it doesn't matter how irrational it seems to us. It makes sense from their theological and political point of view, and that's the only point of view they're interested in. So the president was right to start this, and the president's going to be right to finish it, and he's probably going to have to finish it militarily. I really don't see another good option.
I mean, it seems like Iran is not looking for anything practical, because when it agreed to this memorandum of understanding, it was getting so many benefits from the U.S. We removed the blockade of Iranian ports. That was one, and we removed sanctions. So Iran was standing to benefit from this, and now these actions that it's taking, it just makes you wonder if it wants anything practical. But let me just ask you one last question here, Rod. President Trump suggested potentially in the future maybe the U.S. might take over Karg Island. What do you think about this strategy?
I think there's a decent chance that happens now. The president was very clear that he intends for this to take very little time. Now, what is very little time? I don't know. Depending on your point of view, World War II was 3 years or 6. Depending on your point of view, the Vietnam War was 8 years or 30 years. So in terms of warfare, a very short time might be 6 months. I don't know what he means. Maybe he means 6 days. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to end it quickly, cutting off the Iranian regime's ability to earn foreign cash is essential. It was essential to our victory in the Cold War. It's essential to what's happening to Russia right now as the Ukrainians are increasingly hitting, for example, the other day, they're the largest oil refinery in Omsk, a city even Hitler wasn't able to strike. We're drying up their hard currency. We're making it very, very difficult for them to continue prosecuting their war. And of course, that's essential here. The Iranians have a unique vulnerability in their putting all their eggs in one basket at Karg Island. Honestly, that's an incredibly easy operation for us if we just want to deploy a Marine force or however they want to go about it. And there's not a thing in the world the Iranians can do about it. Moreover, if they were to attack Karg Island in the pursuit of getting it back, they destroy the infrastructure that they have to rebuild. So yes, I think that's probably high on the menu. I don't know if the president will actually do it, but if I were in his position, I would certainly give it serious consideration.
Okay, great points you made today, Rod. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
The U.S. says it has launched additional strikes against Iran. Central Command says, posted on X, the strikes are intended to weaken Iran's ability to threaten shipping in the Strait of Hormuz and are a response to recent attacks on commercial vessels and civilian crews. Officials saying the U.S. is holding Iran accountable and remains committed to keeping the waterway open. And when we come back, are America's children losing the ability to read? We'll speak with an author about the growing literacy crisis and what parents can do to help. Stay tuned.
On streets across America, homeless young people are cold, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the love you're showing a young person this holiday season. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org, and your first month's gift will be matched.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get two free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
The 8th NTD International Piano Competition welcomes distinguished pianists from around the world. celebrating the depth, discipline, and expressive power of the Baroque, classical, and romantic repertoire. September 1st through the 5th, 2026, New York City. Apply at piano.ntdtv.com, honoring the timeless tradition of the piano.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiang Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Next, to share his insights on America's literacy crisis, why today kids are reading less and what can be done about it, we're joined by Jay Ford, the author of Wrestling of the Sycamore, an entrepreneur and speaker who believes America's literacy crisis won't be solved by schools alone and says parents have far more influence than they realize. So Jay, thank you for joining us today. You know, with the rise of technology like phones, tablets, many might expect that children and young people are taking less interest in reading books. Is that what is actually happening right now?
Hi, Don. Yeah, super excited to be able to talk about this subject. I think it's critical in the culture war. We are in a war with technology and competing with online social media. 95% of teenagers use social media. But the interesting fact is a lot of them, in fact, 65% in one study, receive negative content, and almost half sometimes feel depression from online. So it's really working against our young people. It's become quite an epidemic in our country. And I think that parents don't realize how much time that they're spending and the impact that these algorithms are having on their mental development. And then the biggest impact, of course, is the fact that they've turned away from reading and books. And so I'm spearheading an initiative to figure out and learn from how do we get young adults, how do we get teenagers back into wanting to read?
So answer that question for us. How do we get kids more interested in reading books?
Yeah, great. It's a great question. And what we've learned, several things. One, it's kind of a three-step process. The first being the parents need to help create balance in the household. Again, you're competing with these algorithms that are very sophisticated. They use centralized content to trap the young minds into watching. And so you almost have to create a balance in the house where you time block, have them put down their devices, and force them to pick up a book. This is a way to start to replace some of those bad habits with some better habits, and also get them to where they realize that sometime in the day they need to be able to pick up a book and actually start to read. So that's the first step. The second step that's also critical that we found is that you have to have a degree of separation, because if they put down their phone beside of their bed or beside of where they're reading, every few seconds it's going off. They're getting a text, they're getting a post. And so it creates a distraction. So you almost have to have this degree of separation to where they can actually focus on the book and the story. So that's the second part. And then the third, which is critical and where I'm trying to come in, is the content. Because reading has gone out of favor, there wasn't as much good content based on the feedback we've gotten. So if you give them interesting stories, if you give them great action adventure, if you give them things that they want to read, they're obviously much more inclined to want to pick up the book. They don't see it as punishment. They see it as an opportunity to learn, and it creates a much better environment for them, and gives them better content to be able to work from, learn from, and want to be able to read.
What is your opinion on physical books and ebooks? Because there are now devices that offer you to store digital books on these devices, and then you can read them from a screen. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Physical books are more traditional. A lot of kids do have e-readers, and again, that can be that can be productive. They can get the same benefit as long, again, as they don't have those distractions. The problem with a device is that if you've got online, if you've got all sorts of social media on that same device, maybe they're spending more time looking at that, responding to texts and posts than they are actually reading the book. So you have to be very careful that, again, creating that degree of separation, whether it's physical or mental, but in one way or the other, you have to be able to make sure that they can actually focus and take the time that they need to be able to read in peace.
All right, so Jay, while I have you here, I might as well be thorough. What about audiobooks where you're listening to the content?
Well, it's also proven that children that are read to at a young age do much better in standardized testing. Their vocabularies are significantly higher. So we encourage all parents to read with their children, especially at an early age. It's a little harder when they get a little bit older. You kind of want the teenagers or young adults reading on their own. But for younger children, it's a fantastic way to bond. It's a fantastic way to share knowledge, and it's a great way to add something very positive to your household. So it's highly encouraged.
Okay, so give us your estimate about how kids are doing right now in school when it comes to reading. What are classrooms teaching them? What are they not teaching them? And how proficient are they in reading, math, and all that?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on the household, to be honest. I think that the problem is that we can't depend on the school system to set these good habits for our children. Some of them try very hard. Some of them encourage it. A lot of kids take their phones to school. They're distracted in school, so they're not getting any more benefit there than they are in the home. And this is why it's important that the parents step in and parents set those boundaries. Parents create that sense of balance. And look to getting these types of positive habits in their children's lives.
Have reading skills decreased, would you say, over the years, let's say 5, 10, 20 years ago compared to now? Or are they at the same level, or have they increased?
No, I would guess, and some of the studies suggest that they have decreased. And that is because, in an earlier time, when I was younger, you didn't have the distractions. You didn't have social media. You didn't have a phone going off every few seconds. So people picked up a lot more books. People read much more. Nowadays, there's so many distractions. And again, that's why, we really think that it helps when the parents set those boundaries, when the parents instill those good habits, separate them from some of those devices, let them pick up a book, and let's start to get back in the habit of having them read. The importance of this is that reading develops the brain differently. There's more depth of character. There's more storytelling. There's historical reference and context, things they don't teach in schools. I try to introduce all of that in my book, in my stories. And so those are the kind of things that they're not getting from just the online clickbait stuff that they're seeing whenever they're on social media.
Okay, what do you say to parents whose children are telling them, all my friends are looking at their phones when they get home. They're not reading as much as you're telling me to read. How do parents respond to a situation like that?
Yeah, great question. And what can happen, a lot of time you can create communities where parents all kind of agree that, they're going to have their children read. But if you can, it's not too much to ask for a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour maybe, to be able to put down a device and pick up a book. The child's not going to miss out on much in that time frame. And so, I think for parents, especially for kids that have not read, you can start small. You can say for 30 minutes at this particular time, this is your read time. And you can revolve your social media and your social life around that 30 minutes. And then once they start to get in the habit, hopefully if they have good content, they're going to want to start to read on their own. Then you can increase the window and they can start to get even more benefit from it.
Okay, I'm just thinking here. What about comic books or graphic novels? Does that count?
It's a great question. There is storytelling. There is there's interesting things. I think that for children that have the habit of liking to read comics, it's still not a bad habit. It still is a sense of reading. It's a sense of having to turn the pages. It's a sense of being in the moment. It's a sense of not being online and actually following a story. So there are learnings there as well. Obviously, storybooks typically have more vocabulary, more depth of character building. So they're potentially better. But if it starts with that type of reading and that's what gets them moving in that direction, then it's a great entry point.
Okay, just one final question here. Any types of books in particular you would recommend to inspire this love of reading?
Yes, well, of course, the series that I've written, Rustling of the Sycamore, is geared towards young adults. Now, I've also found senior citizens love it and adults love it. So it's a fun action adventure. There's critical thinking skills required. I love for readers to put themselves in the position of what the characters are dealing with and think about how they would handle it. I think, and in the feedback I've gotten, it's a fantastic read for young adults. So obviously, I'm biased towards my stories, but there are some really good books out there, and so I think parents need to do the research, get a feel for what interests their kid, and look for books that fulfill that interest.
Okay, well, Jay, it's been a fantastic conversation today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The Justice Department is issuing a new warning to election officials across the country what states are being told to do after this break.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
And we have breaking news. U.S. Central Command says American forces have begun additional strikes against Iran. CENTCOM says the operation is aimed at further degrading Iran's ability to threaten freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. The military says the United States is holding Iran accountable for what it calls recent unjustified attacks on commercial shipping and civilian crews in the vital waterway. The announcement comes as President Trump is on his way to the United Kingdom after attending the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. We'll keep you updated with the latest information on this. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance delivered remarks in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on the administration's efforts to tackle fraud. Vance highlighted alleged fraudulent use of the H-1B visa program.
Today, I'm proud to announce that the Federal Department of Labor has started dozens of subpoenas and investigations into foreign fraudsters who are trying to take advantage of the H-1B visa program. Here's a simple principle, ladies and gentlemen. American jobs ought to go to American workers and not foreign fraudsters, and the Department of Labor is fighting back against it.
The vice president also gave examples of alleged fraud involving Medicare and Medicaid procedures, such as allografts. These are skin grafts given to people when they suffer a severe burn or injury. He said less than $1 billion per year were spent on these procedures in 2019, 2020, and 21. But this number rose under the Biden administration, reaching $15 billion in 2025 and was set for $25 billion in 2026. Vance says the anti-fraud task force cut out fraudulent payments and fraudulent billing, and the figure for allografts for this year is now back below $1 billion, putting billions back into the pockets of taxpayers. A former judge in Wisconsin is spared jail time after obstructing ICE from arresting an illegal immigrant. Former Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan will instead pay a $5,000 fine. Dugan was convicted of felony obstruction last year on April 18, 2025. ICE agents went to her courthouse to arrest a Mexican illegal immigrant who was appealing for a court hearing before her. Prosecutors say Dugan confronted the ICE agents and ushered the Mexican national out a back door. ICE later arrested the illegal immigrant outside the courthouse and deported him to Mexico. Prosecutors argued Dugan violated her oath and sought a prison sentence for her between 15 and 21 months. Dugan argued in court that she was just trying to do her job and had no malicious intent. U.S. District Judge Lynn Edelman, before handing out the sentence, said, quote, "I think this is a situation where an otherwise good person upset by immigration policies in this country made a bad decision in the moment." Dugan resigned in January due to fallout of this case. She says she plans to return to public service. A warning sent to state election officials from the Justice Department. If they knowingly keep non-citizens on voter rolls or count a non-citizen vote, they could face charges. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
The Justice Department is warning election officials nationwide that knowingly allowing non-citizens on voter rolls or counting their ballots in federal elections could lead to criminal charges. The DOJ sent letters to all 50 states and the District of Columbia, giving them 5 days to explain how they will ensure compliance. In the letter, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmeet Dillon wrote, "We encourage you to contact us to discuss what steps your state should take to maintain clean voter lists as required by law." DOJ's Civil Rights Division has made reviewing statewide voter rolls a top priority. Dillon says they've already identified hundreds of thousands of duplicate, deceased, and potential non-citizen entities nationwide, saying the Justice Department will continue requiring states to clean their rolls to prevent erosion of citizens' confidence in our elections. Another Trump administration priority is the Save America Act, which would require proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and photo ID at the polls. Opponents to the measure, like Democrat Senator Dick Durbin, argue that it's, quote, a voter suppression bill that will make it harder for millions of Americans to exercise their constitutional right to vote. Proponents like Senator Rand Paul, a co-sponsor of the bill, says, quote, Americans deserve certainty, not assumptions about who is voting in their federal elections. Assistant AG Dillon also announced that the DOJ will deploy election monitors to 15 sites in 6 states, that is Arizona, Michigan, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Virginia, ahead of upcoming primaries. She called it a routine, nonpartisan practice used by prior administrations.
For example, in 2022, in the primary season, there were 9 jurisdictions in which the prior administration sent election monitors during the primaries. In 2024, similarly, there were, in that election, 27 different jurisdictions.
Dillon also says the monitors aim to ensure that no language barriers, full access for Americans with disabilities, and that every eligible voter can cast a ballot.
It's also important to make sure that our voting is accurate so that every citizen who votes has their vote counted equally without being canceled out by somebody who shouldn't be voting.
In a separate case, ICE announced Tuesday that an Australian national has been arrested and charged with illegally voting in multiple federal elections after falsely claiming U.S. citizenship. The suspect was indicted on June 11th on the charges of illegally voting in an election and making false statements in order to register to vote. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
A federal judge has ruled that E. Jean Carroll can collect $5.8 million in damages from President Trump. The judge's ruling comes after a jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation in 2023. The Supreme Court let the 2023 civil verdict stand last month. Trump petitioned for a new hearing on Monday. Trump's lawyers had argued that Carroll should wait until the Supreme Court's hearing of Trump's renewed bid to overturn the verdict. The jury found Trump attacked Carroll in 1996 in the dressing room of a luxury Manhattan department store. Jurors also found the president defamed her after she described the alleged attack in a 2019 memoir during his first term as president. Trump has rejected Carroll's claims as a hoax, saying she made up the alleged rape to help sell her book. James McDonald will rejoin the Southern District of New York as Deputy U.S. Attorney for a period of transition. U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton made the announcement in a statement. McDonald is President Trump's choice to be the next U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Clayton notes McDonald's experience as a lawyer and manager is vast and says he is an outstanding choice to lead the women and men of the office in their efforts to serve New York families and all Americans. Clayton has led the office since April 2025 and was recently nominated by the president to serve as the Director of National Intelligence. During the transition period, McDonald will begin to supervise the work and operations of the office while Clayton attends to the Senate confirmation process. And we have an update on the situation in Midtown Manhattan, in which structural damage threatened the possible collapse of a high-rise yesterday. Officials ordered the evacuation of several surrounding buildings. A structural engineer gives his perspective, and NTD's Sean Marshall has the latest.
Workers have begun stabilizing a Manhattan high-rise after buckled columns and sagging floors at the site forced evacuations in and around the Midtown construction site on Tuesday. Parts of the area have been deemed safe enough for people to return to some of the surrounding buildings, but 4 nearby buildings are still under full evacuation orders as a precautionary measure.
In addition to narrowing the number of buildings on a vacate order, we've also narrowed the frozen zone. That is going to continue to narrow as we get more and more information from the building. As the DOB commissioner said, the building is stable, and yet we are going to continue to prioritize the safety of all in that immediate area. That's why we continue to have vacate orders for those 4 buildings, that 1 ground floor restaurant. I am also incredibly thankful for the fact that there have been no injuries thus far and that every single worker has been accounted for.
In an office building, for example, the washrooms are shared, whereas in a residential building, each unit is going to have its own washroom, and so you're going to have to cut through the slabs. You know, there's a structural shock that goes into the building. You've got to cut this, cut that, reframe the structure somehow, but that's all doable. It has to follow a particular sequence, but if that sequence, something happens in that intermediate stage, you could have a situation where a column starts to receive loads that it was not supposed to receive, and then it could buckle.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani's office said late Tuesday that a team had gone floor to floor and observed no additional movement of the damaged columns. The building is a former Pfizer headquarters and is being converted to luxury apartments.
So I had to go to the consulate yesterday to get my documents and stuff like that for my passport and whatever. And I took yesterday off to do that, and I couldn't do that yesterday because they end up evacuating the building right beside it. Yeah, so I have to take time again out today to do that.
Typically, we'll design to make sure that these don't happen. We show the structure, we make sure that the structure is well supported on a temporary basis before the permanent structure is, comes on, or before we reinforce the existing structure.
But living in the city, we need to do better with building infrastructure just so that you're not delaying people like that.
Nearby buildings, including a school, were evacuated early Tuesday. Builders say the 37-story tower is part of the city's largest office to residential conversion project, with over 1,600 planned units. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
A bizarre Spaceballs mystery washes up on a beach, and the world's largest paper airplane takes flight. We'll tell you about this after the break. Stay tuned.
Getting prescription glasses from Select Specs is easier than you might think. Select your frames from our £6 range in-house brands or our extensive designer collections. Then enter, upload or email your latest prescription and our website will analyze it and help you select the best lenses and options to suit you. Click to place the order and your new Select Specs glasses are delivered right to your door. Ordering your prescription glasses is as easy as 1, 2, C with Select Specs and selectspecs.com.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL, a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. And Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy one bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy one, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gyeong Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
U.S. Central Command says American forces have begun additional strikes against Iran. CENTCOM says the operation is aimed at further degrading Iran's ability to threaten freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. The military says the United States is holding Iran accountable for recent unjustified attacks on commercial shipping and civilian crews in the vital waterway. The announcement comes as President Trump is on his way to the United Kingdom after attending the NATO summit in Turkey. We'll keep you updated on this with the latest information. Nuclear energy cooperation expands. The United States, Japan, and South Korea signed a new agreement to speed up the deployment of small modular nuclear reactors in partner countries. The initial focus is on the Indo-Pacific. The memorandum was signed on the sidelines of the NATO summit by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and his Japanese and South Korean counterparts. The framework aims to encourage cooperation between the three countries' nuclear industries, reduce project risks, attract private investment, and strengthen supply chains. It also calls for maintaining high standards for nuclear safety and security. The U.S. is also committing more than $10 million to support SMR development and workforce training in the Indo-Pacific. Officials believe a strange discovery of several large metal spheres on a beach may have originated from space. Here are the details.
Officials in Australia recently had to deal with a bizarre but honest-to-goodness case of spaceballs. No, not that Spaceballs, unfortunately, but I like the way you think. At first, several strange spheres that were found washed ashore on a beach in North Queensland were no laughing matter. The Queensland Fire Department was investigating them as possible hazardous objects. But once the metal balls were secured and other officials, including from the Australian Space Agency, weighed in, the officials determined the spheres appeared to likely be pressure vessels consistent with debris from a, quote, foreign rocket body that had recently re-entered the atmosphere. So, it sounds like the marooned mystery spheres were more likely space junk than space balls. You think that's nuts? Check out the world's largest paper airplane that recently took flight and then took down a Guinness World Record. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill tri-corner dart job. This prodigious paper puppy was properly planned and produced by engineering students at Italy's University of Pisa. Nicknamed Icarus and sporting a wingspan of nearly 66 feet, it sailed an amazing 193 feet in a hangar in Bologna before touching down. The colossal creation was later certified by Guinness World Records to be the largest paper airplane on Earth. And for the sake of these proficient paper pushers, here's hoping the record will remain stationary for years. Get it? Stationary? Because it's paper? Never mind, man.
I got the joke, stationary. So thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. We're taking a break, but we'll be right back. Stay where you are, stay stationary, and remember, watch NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.